Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet Good Torah. We're going to do the incredible supernatural parshas of Tazria and Metzora. So it's fascinating because in these parshas, it describes a spiritual illness called tsaras. And it was a spiritual skin disease, and the way it works and how a person gets healed from this. Now, it's a fascinating thing. Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, he gives a whole list explaining how this was a spiritual disease and it was purely healed by spiritual means, as opposed to the physical illnesses we're dealing with now. And physical illness, we go through the physical route. We go to a doctor, the doctor diagnoses the sickness, and he gives some kind of physical remedy. He gives some kind of medicines or ointments or whatever it takes to heal the disease. But there's also the most important thing to all illness we have now, even these physical-based illnesses, is they all have a spiritual root. And we go to the doctor, we get the medication, but there's also a spiritual work that we need to do to heal the root of the disease. So, for instance, like tefillah is important. We pray to Hashem, we beg Him for rachamim, we beg Him for mercy. We do teshuvah, and this is one of the most important things. We see what spiritual defects we have, and we try to correct them. We feel bad about them, and we try to correct it. And we'll see, like, one of the worst things, that can happen, and what caused most of the illness of the tsaras was lashon hara. There's 10 things that can cause it, but the most severe was lashon hara. Basically, speaking bad about other people, speaking negatively about other people. And we see, which is interesting, with this disease of tsaras, a person was quarantined for first a week, and the Kohen would examine. Well, first he had to go to the Kohen would examine him, and if the person was declared that he had it, or was unsure that he had it, he would be quarantined for a week. The Kohen would check him again, and if certain conditions happen, then he was done, and he was tahor now, and he could go through the process of going out of being Metzora. Or if he still had certain things happen, he would have a second week of quarantine. So we see something really fascinating here with this spiritual disease in the quarantine, and the root of it is lashon hara. And then we see this crazy pandemic we're in right now with this coronavirus, which is a spiritual disease. So I want to stress, so person, chas v'shalom, no one should get this. If a person gets it, you have to go to the doctor, you have to be tested, you have to, thank God there is some medicines, it seems, that are working, and then people have built up some antibodies, and maybe they're starting to give some plasma that's healing it, and hopefully we'll see Hashem remove this very soon from the world. So a person has to treat, the physical illness with the doctors, and then there, the medical advice is, the social distancing, stay, away 6 feet, from everyone, go, if you're going out to a store or going out to public, the mask and the gloves. And then everyone's quarantined in their home. But we see that the spiritual root of this coronavirus, we see that it could be the same root as the Metzora, and that's lashon hara, and speaking negatively about other people. Now the good thing is that just as the negative talk, the lashon hara, can cause disease and illness, the beauty of it all is the positive speech. Speaking well of other people can have a special power of healing in it. And we're going to examine, how to fight against lashon hara. But also the best remedy is speaking positively. Learning how to, start looking for the good in others and speak positively about them. Now we're also going to see that that the Metzora was only quarantined for 1 week or 2 weeks, and it's so depressing. I think we're possibly in week 5 of the quarantine right now. I have completely lost track. It's been so long. We've even passed through Pesach. We passed through Passover already. We're in the Spirit of Omer. We're going to the Shavuos. We could be in week 5 or week 6. I don't even know. But what's so sad about it is shows that what's going on in the world is that we are so ingrained, unfortunately, of arguing with each other and speaking negatively against each other. And there's so much so much incitement by the politics and the media, and people are so divided. And I've seen it so much for the last 3-4 years since the last election here in America. And we see, in Israel, they finally are coming to a unity government now. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but if they don't, they would go to a 4th election, unprecedented political gridlock, and just people arguing, these politics and this and that. And now that the whole world's been shut down, locked down, quarantined, we see this tremendous thing about the power of negative speech. It's quarantined the world for 5 weeks, at least in here in America. And I know it's passed through China, it's passed through Europe. Every country's been on lockdown, quarantine, and everyone's in their homes. And hopefully what this is getting out of all of this is taking us out. The Metzora was taken out. He was taken out of the city, the village, and he had to live in a secluded house. He had to be quarantined. He was away from people. And this seclusion, this quarantine, it would open up a person's heart to want to go back to his family, to his friends, to his neighbors, and interact with them in a more positive way. And I think that is the essence of this coronavirus, this global pandemic, this quarantine, to separate us. We have Baruch Hashem, we have this technology, we have Zoom, Skype, all the rest of it, that we can still talk to each other, but to really be in the same room again, to be a community again, we need to break down this negative political arguing, and just start to speak positively. And there's a huge healing power in speaking positively about each other, definitely to feel it, davening for the health of each other and davening for the health of those Chas v'Shalom that have this coronavirus. And it's an amazing time. It's an opportunity for rachamim and chesed. It's a time for compassion and kindness. So in the Midrash says, Rabbi Moshe Weitzman, he gives us some great recipes from the Midrash of how to start combating the Lashon Hara. So he says, a person is confronted daily with countless, opportunities for speaking Lashon Hara, for speaking negatively about a person. The tongue is a part of the body, of all the limbs and organs, and it moves with the least difficulty and the greatest speed. And Lashon Hara is one of the averas, one of the sins that people commit most frequently, unfortunately. And also the effect of a spoken word, it's not tangible. You don't know. You talk and you don't know what's going to happen. As are those of an avera performed with an actual action. So therefore we tend to treat this really lightly, other than the other, Torah prohibitions. The Saras punishment is no longer in effect because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, and we have to be living in Eretz Yisrael. We have to have a Beis HaMikdash, so we don't have that spiritual disease right now. But its threat does not deter us from speaking evil as it did in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. We don't have this spiritual stop that if we spoke Lashon Hara, it would first appear, the Saras would appear on our house, and then our clothing, and then Chas v'Shalom on us. And we had warnings and spiritual, stoppages and, a spiritual vaccination almost to not speak Lashon Hara. We don't have those warnings anymore. So how then can we fortify ourselves against the temptation to speak Lashon Hara? So the Midrash offers several thoughts which serve as valuable pieces of advice. So our Chachamim, our sages, they teach that every word that leaves a person's mouth is recorded in Shemayim. It's recorded in heaven. And we've seen with all the email scandals and hot mic scandals and social media and tweets and the person's words, deeds, actions, they're all recorded now. We see it even in this world. In this physical world, you can't say anything or do anything. It's recorded. There's some camera somewhere is recording it, and it's all written down in Shemayim. So one day all his words will be played back to him. He will then attempt to excuse himself before the heavenly tribunal, before the Kisei Kavod, before Hashem's throne of glory. And he'll say, I was not aware of the gravity of these transgressions. I did not sin willfully. He will, however, be answered, too late now. It was your duty to realize one of your statements, that each of your statements, whether good or bad, pronounced purposely or unintentionally, was put on record. So a person should realize that a word once spoken does not evaporate in the air without leaving a trace, and therefore need not be taken seriously. On the contrary, every spoken word etches out a mark for eternity, which cannot be erased. A person should consider the special position which the Almighty assigned to the tongue. Hashem, He rebukes the tongue. He says, "O deceitful tongue, why do you constantly move even though I place you in a position which is different from that of all the other limbs and organs in a human body? I place the other limbs in an upright or slanted position, whereas you lie in the mouth horizontally in a resting position, so as to indicate that the tongue's natural position is one of rest. It should not be constantly in motion." So it says in the Gemara that a word is worth, a word's worth a selah, and silence is worth two slime. I forgot the coin it uses, but a word is worth one selah, $1, and silence is worth $2. Double your money. Sometimes it's better not to talk. So moreover, says the Almighty to the tongue, I imprisoned you. I walled you in with 2 enclosures to warn your master not to let you loose. An inner wall of teeth and outer barrier of flesh. The lips which confine you. With how many more barricades must I still block you to restrain you from speaking evil? So we see the negative effect of Lashon Hara. But there is a reverse of it all. speaking positively. Our words, we can speak words of Torah. We can speak words of encouragement. We can speak words of kindness, and we can uplift people, inspire people. I mean, we've all had, we've had family or friend, member that's been depressed and just overcome with grief. And you see the power sometimes when you speak positively and you bring a smile on their face and you make someone laugh and you brighten up their day, that we can pick people up with our words. So just as Lashon Hara has the power to bring illness and disease in the world, speaking kindly and compassionately to each other has the power to bring healing into this world. Let's end this coronavirus. Let's learn the lesson. How many more weeks of quarantine do we need? Chas v'shalom, this should be it. Let's speak kinder to each other. Let's speak compassionate to each other. And let's get this horrible coronavirus out of the world. And let's get on with spring and heading to Shavuos and receiving the Torah at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai, and all the best. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah.